welcome. We have Maestro Fabio Luisi. Thank you so much for joining me today.
It's my very pleasure.
I wondered if I could just start at the beginning. How did you first come across Franz Schmidt or his music? And
it happened when I was a student in Graz, in Austria. I moved from Italy in 1980 to Graz in order to study conducting with my teacher, who was Milan Horvat, a Croatian conductor. And during the time I was in Graz, I lived there for some years. And during that time, I was interested in the musical scene of this town. It's a beautiful, small province town in southern Austria. And I saw that every 6-8 months, there was a performance in the cathedral of this town of Franz Schmidt, Das Buch mit den 7 Siegeln. So the book with the 7 seals.
That often?
And yes, and it was the cathedral chorus with its conductor. They had traditionally a very strong relationship with this work, and so they proposed this work in the church over and over, at least twice a year. And so I decided to attend the performance because I didn't know even the name of this composer, Franz Schmidt. It was completely unknown in Italy when I was there. And in Austria, I was concerned through my study with other composers, which are more mainstream, more important for a student than a niche composer like Franz Schmidt. And so I attended this concert on a Sunday, and I was like, it was an epiphany about this work and this composer. I didn't expect what I could hear in this during this concert. I was overwhelmed by this orchestration and how he treated the chorus and the organ and everything. It's such a complex work and such a difficult work also to listen to. It's not just the performing side, which is tricky, but also from a point of view of the listener, is you have to be fully focused, and really it's a journey. It's a really spiritual journey. And so I was overwhelmed, and I started to study this composer. Who was Franz Schmidt, and what did he write, and when did he live, and when and why, and so on. As you very well know, there are many different aspects. Some of them are a little bit tricky to speak about Franz Schmidt. His time was a very complex time. His life, a complex, difficult, very rich life in terms of musical experiences. And so there started my journey to Franz Schmidt. And the next important point was when I was chief conductor of the Tonkünstler Orchestra in Vienna. The manager of the orchestra came to me in my second year, I think, of my tenure, and he asked me, we are doing together with Musikverein a mini festival to examine a little bit the influence Franz Schubert had on later composers. And he told me there is a very interesting literature, secondary literature, and letters to and from Franz Schmidt, talking about his approach in the Third Symphony, which was probably, apparently or allegedly, inspired by the Gestus, by the atmosphere of Franz Schubert. And he asked me if I wanted to conduct this symphony. I didn't know this symphony. I know at that time, I knew that Franz Schmidt had written 4 symphonies, but I had never conducted any of them. And so that was my first practical approach with his music. And so I conducted the 3rd symphony for a couple of concerts with the Tonklöster Orchestra.
Yes, fantastic. And you've now performed, I mean, the symphonies and the Book of the Seven Seals all around the world many, many times, I believe.
Well, I conducted the most conducted work by Franz Schmidt from me is the 4th Symphony, which is the most popular, and many of my colleagues have approached Schmidt starting with the 4th Symphony, which is probably his more mature and most inspired work, at least concerning the symphonies. I started with the 3rd, as I said, which is an exception, I think.
How did you find the 3rd? Did you enjoy it? Do you enjoy it?
Oh, yes, I did. I did enjoy the 3rd Symphony very much, which is all symphonies are different from each other. They really have a completely different approach to form, to development, to sense, to feelings, and this is very interesting because he wrote 4 symphonies which are truly unique, and so I appreciate that he is not one of the composers who wrote 27 symphonies and they all sound alike. No, it was 4 symphonies very different from each other, and I liked the 3rd Symphony. I loved the 4th Symphony, of course, because this is such a perfect work, and also the why he wrote it is very touching, of course. It means something very, very deep, and you can understand this if you conduct the symphony, if you hear the symphony, if you conduct the symphony even more. So, and then I conducted many times the book with the 7 seals.
And do you do the book with a break in the middle, or you do it in 2 parts or 3 parts or 1 part, or? No,
I normally do it in 2 parts.
Okay.
Which makes sense because this piece is very long.
Yes.
And to do it in only 1 part, it's a little bit it's tricky, especially for the chorus, also for the soloist. So most of the time, I did it once, I think, in 1, but I don't remember. It might have been in Leipzig. I did it in Leipzig 2 or 3 times, even during my tenure with the radio orchestra. One of those performances was in 1, but then I decided not to do it anymore.
I think for me, it's one of the things that I'm most fascinated by in Schmidt is the way he tries to connect things together, sort of particularly over multi-movement forms and through the 4th Symphony. How have you sort of approached that conducting? Have you experimented? Have you?
No, actually, I did not. What I can say, well, you get older, and the way to understand music changes, and because you change, and it happened to me as well. And I'm sure that my 4th Symphony today is different than my 4th Symphony 25 years ago. And my book today will be different than the book I conducted the first time 20 years ago. But it's a natural process. So I started it again and again, and I come up with new ideas and I come up with new solutions of the many problems we encountered during the study. And I could see this, for example, a couple of months ago, I conducted the Second Symphony in Vienna. And it was the third time I conducted the symphony with the Vienna Symphony Orchestra, which used to be my orchestra. I was chief conductor there for 8 years. And in those 8 years, I did the Second Symphony twice, and the Fourth Symphony once. And I am sure that my Second Symphony now was much more, well, I think it was better. I had the feeling it was better because I understood the piece better. And I can remember the first time I did the Second Symphony in Vienna was difficult for me to oversee the form, for example, which is very complex, especially the third and fourth movement. The third movement, which is but now it was somehow easier and more natural. So it means I got deeper into this piece, and it was beneficial to everybody, to myself and also to the orchestra and to the audience, I hope.
Well, and perhaps the players weren't quite so scared of the music, having played once.
They were, and I remember first time we did it, it was, I think, the first time after 30 or 35 years they played this piece. Again, the last time they did it was in the 60s or something like this. And then I conducted the Second Symphony, and they were overwhelmed about the difficulty of this piece, especially the strings. And this time, I remember when they asked me, because I did it at the concert house, and they asked me specifically for this symphony, and I told them, yes, I would love to do it, but please tell the orchestra it is a difficult piece. Now there are a lot of new young musicians who don't have any experience with Franz Schmidt and even less with this symphony. They have to look at it really before the first rehearsal, because otherwise we are lost. It's not possible to play it like this.
Yes, it's ferociously difficult.
It is, especially the first movement, it is extremely difficult. You come to the variations, some of them are very difficult, some of them are okay. The last movement is not particularly difficult, but the first movement is really something.
And you're doing the Second Symphony soon in Berlin, I think?
That's exact, yes.
I mean, they're obviously quite a good orchestra, but do they know what they're in for?
I hope they know. Well, this is an orchestra where the musicians, they prepare themselves, I know that. And they are doing a cycle, Schmidt cycle with Petrenko, and he's doing everything else. And they gave me the Second Symphony, which I appreciate very much. And so I don't expect any difficulty.
Fantastic. And when you were recording, because you recorded all of the symphonies and the Das Buch, were there some particular problems, or you mentioned earlier about finding solutions? Were there things you found recording the pieces maybe differently to performing them?
Well, I recorded all symphonies and the Buch in Leipzig. And we did a studio recording of the symphonies, but we did a concert recording of the Buch. So the recording of the Buch is during 2 concerts we gave in Leipzig. And at the contrary, all symphonies had been recorded after concerts or before concerts, except the third one, which we did not play in concert. We just recorded it. And I remember that orchestra, actually, I have to say, they have in Leipzig also a tradition with the Buch, because one of my predecessors, Herbert Kegel, used to play the Buch every 2 or 3 years. And the chorus knows this piece very, very well. It is excellent. It's outstanding chorus in Leipzig. So they knew this piece. They had played with Herbert Kegel, and later several times with Peter Schreier, who was conducting at that time. And I remember the year I started my tenure in Leipzig, it was a concert in the season conducted by Peter Schreier with the Buch mit den Sieben Siegeln. So it was not new for them, and even the style. Of course, if you play the Buch, you know Franz Schmidt's style. But the symphonies, it was a different thing. They knew the Fourth Symphony. They had played this, but they didn't know at all the other three symphonies. So it was completely different. And I remember that the beginning was very hard, and because the harmonical world of Schmidt is really very unique, and it's not like Mahler, it's not like Bruckner, it's not like the romantic Schoenberg. It's completely different. It is very personal, and so there is no epigonal side in this composer. He's really himself, and so to get to know this style was not so easy. But I also remember that at the end, we recorded all symphony in 2 months. So, and we had a lot of sessions, and I think we had a very good product. And at the end, the musicians came to me and they told me it's like an addiction now. So you get addicted to Franz Schmidt, and this is true somehow because it is so unique. This language, it's very very personal, and it's very deep and very interesting and well done. So you can really get an addiction.
I admit I have that addiction.
Very good. Me too.
Fantastic. And the First Symphony, have you performed that in concert as well?
Yes, I did in Leipzig. It was the only time I did it. And yes, I like the symphony because it's a very romantic approach. It's like Schumann symphony, a little bit evolved, of course. But I always thought, oh, this is like Schumann Third Symphony, so very light and very enthusiastic. It's a beautiful language, so I liked it. But as I said, I only played it once in two concerts in Leipzig at that time.
Fantastic. And I know through some of your work in Dallas that you've done a lot to try and inspire people and involve people in Schmidt's language and guide them, sort of unlock the door. Is there anything you've found? So if someone has never heard some Schmidt before, what keys or guidance might you give them to sort of to enter his world and to find the joy that you find in it?
You know, I don't give lectures about the composer. Even if my orchestra doesn't know the composer, I don't explain the world of the composer because they are adult musicians, and I think they have the tools to understand music they are playing. And so I think that the best way is just let's go together, let's play this, and let's explore this world. Because if we talk about Schmidt, it is a real musical world of its own. And we just did the Fourth Symphony a couple of years ago. And in the coming season, we are doing the Buch for the first time in Dallas. This will be very, very new for all of them.
Fantastic. Have you got good singers?
I hope so.
Fantastic. And I mean, Schmidt comes from this extraordinary time period, this sort of powder keg of everything exploding in Vienna. How do you feel? I mean, the conversation is normally about progressive versus conservative, although I'm not sure that that's very helpful. How do you sort of feel him fitting into the first 30 years of the 20th century?
Well, he refuses the second Vienna School, and he's very clear about this. Even if many of his teachers or friends or students were exponents of this second Vienna School, and so he refused it because he says it's not my world. My world is anchored in the tonality. And he used the tonality in a very special way. And many times we know from the Fourth Symphony, from the Second Symphony, from the Buch, he breaks with tonality. There are moments where tonality doesn't exist anymore. It's really just coming to the limit when this explodes, and it's not anymore existent. And then he finds again, mostly through a melodic line, he finds back to tonality. This happens in the Fourth Symphony, this happens in the book, this happens in the Second Symphony as well. This is his world. So he comes until willfully breaking the word of tonality, but then coming back to it. So this is, I don't think he could have done something different than this. It is his being. So yeah. we cannot condemn it for this. It's what he could done. But the way how he used tonalities, as I said before, is a very unique and very personal.